At the height of marginalization just after the independence of Wazobia, Nigeria, the tribes favored by the British colonial empire and tagged with the name Big Three tribes in the Nigerian geopolitical space went out on a parade to make the many distinct tribes and ethnic groups of the British so-called Niger Delta area sub-tribe to them. The reasons were, in the case of Yoruba, to enlarge their population, coasts, and to give themselves great economical control, in attempt to coil themselves some form of supremacy in numbers at the Nigerian political atmosphere against the rest of their counterpart supposed big tribes, Igbo and Hausa. To reach the fullest of this, the Yorubas actually pioneered this act of attributing other supposed, lesser populated tribes as compared to them, with falsely documented history, and altering histories known to natives of those supposed lesser tribes. In this campaign they ended up writing fictional history for almost all the unique Niger Deltan tribes and making them some sort of lost descendants of the many forged histories of the Yoruba nation. The Hausas as well joined this campaign. Their aim was to have at least some access to the Atlantic Ocean through the act, increase their political numbers and earn some unlabored economic benefits. In their doing, they also tried to come up with some false histories for the so-tagged sub-tribes that existed distinctly and peacefully on their then shared present Nigerian geographical area long before the arrival of the Westerners and the idea of Nigeria's existence ever came up. But soon they realized it was especially difficult for them because of the geographical distance they are placed from the distinct Niger Delta region. However, records proves that they, the Hausa, eventually changed tactics and then they tried to build formal relationships with the tribes, which their counterparts yet acknowledged as nothing but sub-tribes, as diverse and independent tribes that have existed in both pre- and post-Nigerian creation. The Igbos joined the campaign to write and create false histories solely at the time to gain great economic benefit, and only that. Which in turn gave them some sort of supremacy above their counterparts, Hausa and Yoruba, as crude oil was firstly discovered in their claimed, lesser tribes areas. Yes, the Igbos also often joined effort in the campaign of documenting false history to marginalize the other distinct tribes, but most of their aim was not on gaining more political grounds but on what was ready to reap. Greed easily corrupted them, thus at a point they neglected everything else on the region attributed to them and started making sure they forcefully marginalized the supposed sub-tribes at once or else render them altogether useless to never be opposed at any form. At that path they ultimately waged both psychological and physical wars against the Ijaw people, for eventually challenging the falsehood that was preached on them and the rigged oppression fueled by the Igbo greed. For not only the Ijaws were and remains the most populous tribe in the Niger Delta Nigeria, and then natives to all oil-producing regions but kept on agitating against their forceful and unjust inclusion to the Nigerian state. Thus, the Igbo Nigerian leaders at the early days of Nigeria's creation, in persons of General Johnson Ijaw-ibe and Ojukwu, could not think of any diplomatic solution toward the Ijaw people's agitation to be excluded in the Nigerian state. On the February 23, 1966 they launched an all-out war against the Ijaw freedom fighter, Isaac Burrow, and the Ijaw nation that was then proclaimed as Niger Delta Republic, crushing it within days to keep Nigeria as one. More evidence of this is in the history books attributed to most of the Niger Deltan tribes, if not all. You will know it to be true when you give yourself some time to read the given histories of the distinct people from the Yoruba, Isoko, Edo, Ijaw-ibe, and Ijaw. All these tribes one way or the others have been claimed falsely to have descended from some Yoruba and Igbo never existed ancient ancestors or kingdoms. Spare yourself a few hours to read about the Isoko's history based from the Yoruba forged historical perspectives and you will realize that they have been claimed to have been descended from a Yoruba ancestor who most likely never existed. Now, read the same Isoko history given to them by their neighbors to the east. One will notice without time that the Isokos descended from some ancient Igbo kingdom that never existed for the first place. The same goes to their attributed false histories to the Yoruba, Ijaw-ibe, and Ijaw. But then again, while most of this supposed sub-tribes have without choice agreed or to somewhat have accepted to forget their own histories, ancestry, and embrace the proposed falsely documented histories of this so-called big tribes, the Ijaws remain the only tribe too distinct and quite unwilling to accept neither the forged history of the Yoruba, Igbo, or Hausa. This means Ijaw remain the one tribe in the Delta that is yet both psychologically and physically unwilling to give up her creeks, rivers, lands, and her Atlantic access to any of this so-called big tribe, and will never. Because having completely rejected the Yoruba, Igbo falsely given history of Ijaw origin, some dedicated Ijaw-ibes and elders are making critical research to author the accurate and fully independent histories of the Ijaw nation. Also at this point, when indigenous people everywhere have lost faith for the Nigeria nation and are agitating to lead separate native nations as independent states, the Ijaw, whom were the first to agitate for an independent nation from Nigeria, has not only encouraged their neighbors such as Igbo, Biafra and Yoruba, Oduduwa to adjust their maps and let out any territory of the Ijaw nation outside their borders, but also have joined to suit for a referendum for the independence of an Ijaw nation, the Ijaw Republic.
The Ijaw nation is not and has never been and can never be part of the Biafran Republic. If there is any republic we should have or are entitled to, is the Ijaw Republic and not Biafran Republic. So we need to be joined to assert our territories that have been forcefully incorporated into the Biafran map. We want a nation of our own called the Ijaw Republic.
The Ijaw nation, from the head of Ijaw National Congress, INC, to the least Ijaw son and daughter, refused all sort of marginalization and believes in gaining independence for the Ijaw Republic or nothing else. Stand with us here. In the Lovers of Ijaw Nation organization, Lino, follow the page, like, comment, and share the video. Authored by Larry, vice head of the Central Region of the Ijaw Nation.